So getting started journaling is actually really easy. You need something to write with, you need something to write on, and you need something to write about. And I'm a big proponent of journaling. I think that it helps us give a narrative to our lives. It can help us engage in self-reflection, self-improvement. If we're worried basically about the course of our lives, I think the first step that we can take is figuring out exactly where things are going wrong. And in order to understand where things are going wrong, we just need to understand ourselves a little bit better. And so journaling becomes a very natural thing to do. I think some people, though, are making some mistakes when they journal. And today I want to talk about some of the do's and don'ts of journaling. The first struggle that people have when they try to start journaling is actually just doing it consistently. So often people will tell me that they want to journal more often, but they just seem to forget. Or they'll say that when they sit down, they have nothing to write about. I've talked about what to write about in another video. I'll link it down below. And I offered a 3-part structure for helping to write about your day in a way that can kind of give you a bigger narrative about your life. And it's something that I've found very helpful. But the truth is, I don't think people actually struggle with what to write about. I think they simply struggle with the act of writing. And the first mistake they're making is they're not making time. So don't find time, make time. When we say that we're going to find time to do something, what we mean is I'll see when I can squeeze it into my schedule. But the truth is, if something is valuable to us, if it's something that we actually think is important, that we need to do on a regular basis, we make time, meaning we plan ahead and figure out when during the day we're actually going to accomplish the task. This is given a lot of fancy names like time blocking or just calendar management or simply scheduling, but it really all boils down to this. We spend our time on things that we actually value. And if you actually value journaling, then you need to spend your time journaling. And if you're not spending your time doing that, you need to look at your schedule and say, when can I make time to write? For some people, this works really well in the mornings. I prefer morning journaling and writing, and generally anything creative or thoughtful I like to do before 9 a.m. But some people aren't going to be able to find time in the mornings because they have to get to work, they have to take care of their kids, whatever. So maybe they need to do it in the evenings or do it during your lunch break. I don't think that there is a single best time during the day. Really, that is a matter of individual preference and just figuring out what works for you. But crucially, you have to find the time. So crucially, you need to figure out what's the time when I can get some real journaling done, and then how can I block that out of my schedule so that I'm actually spending the time doing it. You don't need that much time. 5 minutes a day is a great journaling routine. 10 minutes a day, fantastic. 15 minutes a day, wonderful. 30 minutes a day actually starts to seem excessive. So pick a time where maybe you would usually watch some YouTube, or pick a time where you would usually play a game on your phone. Figure out where in your day you are chronically wasting 5 minutes and just say that's the time when I will spend journaling. Eventually, journaling will become like exercise, meaning that if you go a day without it, you will feel strange and uncomfortable. And if you want to make journaling a big part of your life, that's how you need to think about it. But if you're looking for a way to start small, try this. Pick 3 days a week, maybe Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and find 5 minutes in each of those days and journal like that. Do that for a month and then see if you want to keep journaling even more often. The second mistake people are making is thinking that if they miss a day, they need to beat themselves up. Or if they miss a day, they need to somehow make up for it. So the next time they journal, they're actually going to journal about 2 or 3 days as opposed to just 1 day. This is actually a terrible way to think about things. If you miss a day of exercise, you don't do double the next day because you're going to overwhelm yourself. You're going to increase the risk of strain and injury. And basically, you're not going to want to do it in the future. So if you're trying to make journaling a daily habit, but you missed journaling yesterday, the best advice I can give you is to journal today. Don't worry about yesterday, just figure out what you can do to make it better today. Worrying about guilt, worrying about shame, about your journaling process, all that is going to do is get in the way of actually journaling. So let's cut it out. The third mistake that people make, and I've certainly made this myself, is holding back. Your journal ideally is a very private thing. If you're really worried about privacy, you can find apps that have passwords, or you can hide your journal somewhere. You can put it in a place with a lock and a key. Hell, you could even just burn the pages after you've written them. A lot of the value of journaling is really just getting it out of you, doing the writing itself. But people seem to be writing as if there's someone staring over their shoulder reading what they said. And what that does is brings up feelings of guilt and feelings of shame and embarrassment, and so they don't write down on the page what they really want to write down. This is disastrous for your journaling habit. Your journal ideally is a place where you can be honest with yourself. When I think about journaling, I think about the great philosopher Marcus Aurelius in his book, The Meditations, which is a collection of his journals. Marcus is not holding back in those journals. He is thinking about all of the places where he has failed, and he's trying to figure out what he can do going forward to make things a little bit better. How can he live by his principles? How could he avoid the mistakes that he made in the past? How could he improve? If he had held back, he wouldn't have been letting himself have those thoughts that I think he needed to think. He needed to think through them. Journaling is an opportunity to think the thoughts that we're not allowed to say out loud. The next mistake that I think people are making is focusing too much on the negative. There is a dark side to journaling. It can become a quickly kind of toxic practice if you aren't careful. While I do think we need to wrestle with those dark thoughts that we might have, we cannot give ourselves exclusively over to them. The mind is a highly plastic thing, which means that it can be reshaped and reformed based on the thoughts that you allow yourself to have. If you exclusively think negative thoughts, then you will start to exclusively have negative thoughts. And that is going to be damaging to your mental health and to your well-being. If you are someone who is struggling with that dark side of journaling, where things feel very intense and where you feel like you can't break out of that spiral, it makes sense for a little while to just journal about positive things. Allowing ourselves to also think about the positive, it's an important component of any journaling practice. And finally, my most important piece of advice is don't give up. So many people start journaling, maybe they fill up a few pages in their journal, and then months later they'll realize they haven't written. Don't let yourself become discouraged because you're still building the habit. It doesn't feel like second nature. Don't allow yourself to be too embarrassed and so you want to give up because you don't want to think those thoughts anymore. Don't allow yourself to become so overwhelmed by the dark side of all of this that you can't even journal about the positive. Don't let it slip by the wayside because you didn't make time. Journaling is one of those practices where the more often you do it, the more valuable each session becomes. So if you are someone who journals every single day, you are getting a tremendous amount of value out of the practice. If you are someone who journals sporadically, you are getting some value, but it's not nearly as valuable as it would be if you were doing it more often. And that's because journaling is a skill. And skills are the sorts of things where when you regularly train or practice, you maintain or improve those skills. But if you don't do them for a long time, you start to lose skill. You actually become less capable. If you want journaling to be a part of your life because you think it can offer you some benefits, and there really are many benefits to journaling, then giving up is just the worst thing you can do. Don't let discouragement get in the way of this very valuable practice.